Pretty splendid sight. Got the south coast of Sardinia here this morning. Yeah, as you can see, it's extremely calm. Had no wind for, I'd say, a third of the journey. It was very frustrating. About 100 miles out, I just lost all wind. So yeah, I'm just gonna drop anchor at a place called Portofino, take the dog for a quick walk, and then I'm gonna meet with some of my friends at Cagliari. Yeah, so everybody's talking about dinghies or curious, asking me about dinghies. This is pretty important, folks. I think, first of all, if you're going to go for this electric, basically it's a topping lift, which is that one. Works off a remote up here. So I have a little battery powered remote which controls this, which controls the topping lift, which means that single-handedly I can lift and lower the dinghy. One thing I'd say is having once it's in the water, having the 20 horsepower is amazing. Literally, I wouldn't bother with anything else apart from the Honda. I love motorbikes, and Honda are reliable, albeit they're probably not the quickest, but they're very reliable and the build quality is great. So a lot of people are using these high fields simply because they've got the aluminium base. They're a bit lighter. I know there's a carbon fiber one. I saw it, the first time I saw it was on the Mechanici 60 at the Grand Mott, on the back of one of those. Probably, yeah, like, I mean, it's a Tender, they're not very pretty anyway, but the problem is with carbon fiber, if you scratch it, it's probably going to make you cry more than one of these. So you can see the bottom of mine, she sits in the water quite a lot, and there's a few dings or whatever, but you're not going to get that emotional about it. It's part of daily life if you're living aboard. And what I've done is I've also attached two painters to the dinghy, so that if I'm dragging it and can't be bothered to lift it up, then if one chafes, which does happen, by the way, it has happened to me, if it chafes, then you've got the other one as backup. You can see it's not perfectly sitting in the blocks at the moment. Not too big a deal, because I've got it tied down with these ratchet straps, which I've added. These ratchet straps here, yeah, 20 quid each or something, so that does the job. And then I added these are absolutely critical. So you can see the way they work, that basically I've used a pulley block, and then it goes back to a carabiner here. And what they do is, so you now have got these tying it down, and when I'm underway I pull in the jammers, these cheap jammers, spin lock jobs, and you can see if I put a bit of tension on them, now the dinghy's held quite well. So yeah, she approves. So that's that. So yeah, what I'm referring to here is, if you've got a big family, or if you're planning on taking more than, say, 4 people in a dinghy, you're definitely going to need at least 10 horsepower. And what that means is that you can anchor wherever you want, and then use this as your car. Basically, you've got your house and your car, and it's nice just to have that bit more power, and you don't waste all day trying to get somewhere. It's not as frustrating. You can do a couple of runs, but at the same time, it does consume a little bit of your energy if you're on your own, just getting that on and off. I originally bought this with the view to being able to take my friends wakeboarding, and yeah, it's possible, you can do it. All the main units are up, and this will start flapping around in a second because the apparent wind, as I'm motoring, scooches right round to the front to 12 o'clock, and there you go, it starts flapping around. So just because I can't be bothered to take it in, I'm just going to shoot it in. There you go, she'll sit nicely, and stop flapping around because you're trying to increase the longevity of your sails. So yeah, so at 2,000 revs, actually, to be totally correct, at 2,000 revs you burn 1 litre per mile with the 75D2 Volvo pump. So as I've pulled that in, I've just given it a few extra wraps around, which is good practice. Just stop it if the wind does pick up, it doesn't just blow out on its own. Even if I've got the jammer closed over there, a couple of turns I just make sure it's nice and tight. As I was furling it in, I was using what was the leeward sheet. I've pulled in the slack and used these cam cleats just to stop it from hanging loose at the front and then falling. There's a furling drum at the front here. You can see the furling drums there. So I don't want these lines basically falling and getting caught in the furling drum. The leeward sheet could do that if you're not focused on it, and anybody that's new to the boat, that tends to happen. Not really an issue when you've got the self-tacking jib, and why this is quite nice in bad weather when you're already really tired is if you tack, this just basically goes from one side to the other, and you've only got one sheet for it, as you can see, so pretty nice. I'm not sure if, I obviously don't know how much everybody knows on YouTube of sailing, but I think a lot of people just think about getting away from the rat race and haven't really done that much sailing. So yeah, that's beautiful. And with this ship, I was surprised. I met a chap in Mallorca that had actually taken completely down his self-tacking jib, which I thought was strange, because I could see the logic, because it means that when he's tacking with the Genoa only, it means that he can very easily tack just like you would on a catamaran. But the problem is, if you're going upwind in any sort of significant wind, anything above say 14, 15 knots, if you're going upwind, you need to use the jib. So yeah, I've left mine. I use it a lot, to be honest, and it's pretty good. It's pretty much goes as close to the wind as the Genoa does, pretty much, really. You can see I've still got the same mainsail up there now, and there's absolutely no wind, so yeah, probably should put in those sheets at the back, which I'll do now. Close the jammer, take her off. A bit of a balls here, that happens when there's not much tension on it. Then you can see, if you look back here, the other main sheet, because there's two on this, we have no traveller. Just pull that in, and you can pull it in by hand. Look, moving the boom. There we go. Just keep that in and loop. The wind's changed a little bit, so if I wanted to, I'm gonna be really lazy, because the central winch is not electric, even if you go for the electric option. And that's smart, actually, because you actually need to feel, and you don't really need, it's a bit of a waste of money in my view. I'm trying to do this one-handed, so forgive me. You don't really need electric winch on the middle one anyway. It'd be a total waste of money. Plus the difference between the feel, you need the feel basically on the manual winch. So I'm just going to use this. I'm going to be lazy. I've added this extra turning ship here so that I can do this. Look, so just basically going to set to the main head. So there's the main centre now, and put the jammer closed. Boom. So there we go. That's her off. That's that done. Mainsail's still up. Just got to be careful if there's a squall. Let's say the rule of thumb is you should never keep a main sheet closed in a jammer, and that makes sense. And in case a squall kicks up and you want to blow that sheet, you have to put tension on it before you can actually open up the jammers. So yeah, probably should never really, all the old timers say, should never close a jammer in a main sheet, an active main sheet anyway. Well, to be honest, on this ship, sometimes I'm sailing with this main sheet on the main, you know, this, say this is the active main sheet, and then this one is the leeward main sheet. Because we have no boom bang, as I've said in the other videos, I use this turning ship just to, what it does is in increasing the tension, it just takes the boom down a little bit and makes that sail go from that shape just a little bit more like that. Give you just a slightly better shape. It's like your fang. Yeah. What does she think? So while there's only 2 knots of wind, I've shown you this before in previous videos, but this was the original reefing point that comes from the factory, and you can see before I put this non-friction tape, because there was a lot of chafe here at this point, you know, when the tension was there and the wind picked up. So we've added these Dyneema attached rings, and you can see it's done a great job. You know, there's literally no chafe anymore. Really fantastic. So I think if you were going to commission a new boat, one of the first things I would do is this here. And you can see what I've done is I put a little bit of tape, or some people put a piece of cotton through just to show, just to remind you where the reefing point is. So when I pull that all the way through, once the mainsail is dropped, that's my marker over there at the jammers. just let me know. Yeah, I've got it all pulled in. She's pulled in tight enough, and then I can start to raise the mainsail again. Bit of sail trim stuff here. So you can see these cars obviously are attached to my Genoa sheet, and what this is all about, if you're not really that familiar with sailing, is it introduces or decreases the twist in the top of the sail. And so by moving this car backwards and forwards, I can change the shape of the sail, particularly at the top of the sail. So generally what you do is you try and sort out the shape of the sail at the bottom first, get your telltales, will tell you if you've got the sail trim right. And if you look up and the telltale that's closest to you is pointing up, you should probably get your car to move a little bit more forward. And I've found generally in the Mediterranean, as far forward as possible is what I need. But as soon as I start going towards the Atlantic, I usually start having it around here when the wind starts to pick up, and then you get better sail trim then. So you can see here on the Genoa furling line, I actually upgraded it. This is Dyneema, but if you look at the quality, because the original one chafed to hell and I had to get a new one. But do you know what? I don't actually think, because I use this so much, Dyneema is the way to go. Unless you really need it on a main sheet or something, I wouldn't really bother with a furling line. This is not Dyneema, however, and you can see it's much easier to handle. See the way it doesn't, it basically doesn't kink. It's a slightly cheaper line, it's nicer on hands as well. So yeah, bit of advice there. Something I try and do. So Genoa is down at the moment and may use it if the wind picks up. But just use this winch, so you can see that's all tangled, because this is Dyneema. It's actually good quality, but what surprises me is sometimes the line that you get isn't as good quality as you think. Although it's tougher and stronger, it probably was a bit unnecessary for me to replace that with Dyneema. Got a little bit trigger happy, and like I said before, for this one, I can try and pull the kinks out of it using the winch. Quite a good little trick. From one of my professional sailor friends. There you go. You can see it's a little bit short, so when I get into the chandlery now, I'm actually going to change this out, because I'm using this every day, all day, every day, and it's wrecking my head, to be honest. So there we go, which is good. Then what I'll do, so I'll put it over here, like that, then just pull through the other side, like this. Now she sits really nicely, boom. Very good. But with my main halyard, I cord that in a figure of 8 fashion so that she can run out really nicely. If I need to put in a reef in an emergency, I can just, the reef, when you put it in a figure of 8 like that, it just runs out much better, but not necessary for the furling lines. There you go. Lightning's just coming in, so hopefully the wind will stay as it is. There we go. So we're just going to keep a little bit of speed up so that your rudder still works. It's about the limit there. So I've got about 1,000 revs on at the moment. Just going to go straight at the dock for a bit. Got a bit of that speed. Right. And now I'm going to go hard to starboard, then back up reverse. Elba. Albert, shut up.
Bad weather, huh?
Possible rain tomorrow.
Yeah. It's working about wind again. The wind in my boat is very small.
Careful.
My casa, I'm home.
Momento.
Bend that down.
Yeah.
Solo. Però la pensa.